Our NDC minority member on Parliamentary Defense and Interior Committee, Peter Tobu, has warned that his side will fiercely resist any attempt to remove Dr. George Dampare as the Inspector General of the Police Service. His comment follows the circulation of an audio said to reveal a plot to kick Dr. Dampare out to enable the MPP rig next year's elections. Peter Tobu warns that such action could seriously put the Fourth Republic at peril. The tape does not identify any person by name, but the people involved include a top police officer and a senior member of the governing MPP. We will hear from Mr. Tobu shortly. Per our editorial policy, we're unable to play the tape as we have not independently verified it, but we can tell you what we hear in the parliamentary. Correspondent Kweku Asante joins me from Parliament, where the issue is receiving some attention. Kweku, grateful for joining us. First, what do you pick up from the audio?
This audio has some very disturbing sounds. There are those who are on a tape saying that the Inspector General of Police is a member of the NDC and that he is thwarting certain efforts by the government to do certain things, of course, starting from their Senate by-election. There's a claim that if the IGP, Dr. Dampare, remains at post by the 2024 election, he will scuttle government's efforts to, quote-unquote, rig the election. And so he must be changed, removed, so that a new person who can aid government's efforts to do all this can be brought in. And these are the comments that are captured in that viral audio. It is a lengthy one. It's almost an hour, and there are a lot of allegations on it against the IGP about how he's not allowing the government have their way in doing a number of things. And so far, we have not been able to independently verify the source or the veracity of the things that have been said in that tape or the authenticity of it.
How has Parliament been reacting to this particular tape?
There's been a number of comments that have come in so far. We've heard from Peter Tobu, who first says that his side will resist any attempt to remove the IGP. Of course, he concedes that the president appoints the IGP and may remove him based on certain satisfactory circumstances and conditions, but he does not believe that any circumstance so far warrants that. And if anything of that sort is supposed to happen, then someone trying to have their way and do what happened in the Ayawaso West by-election, if anything of that sort is supposed to happen, his side will resist it.
There's only one position in the whole Ghana Police Service called the IGP's position. And you have over 30-something, 40-something, 50-something thousand police officers. So if you have about 20 commissioners, okay, each of them believe that I can become IGP. So the dream to become IGP is a motivation to drive them into all kinds of things. So the fact that you become IGP, don't go sleeping thinking that the people who are supporting you, they all love you so much. They are supporting you believing that you will leave very soon for them to occupy the same position. So your own supporters can become your enemies. So it's a normal thing, lobbying behind the scene, wanting to get to the apex of the organization that you join. That is always a dream for every police officer. So the fact that people will lobby to get that position is not a bad thing. But when you are becoming so dirty in your approach, it becomes unprofessional, and you are totally disqualified to even catch the eye of the president.
Finally, Honorable, in the lead up to 2024 election, a lot has been said. Do you believe that you've said so far that the IGP is doing a good job? Do you believe that there may be a plot within the government itself to remove the IGP? Because some have said he will not allow plans to rig any election. Do you believe that anything of that sort could be happening?
Well, it's not a matter of believing, but it's a matter of saying that whoever thinks that way is undemocratic in the brain. Because if somebody thinks that is the Ayawaso West bygone election type of violence that can lead the MPP to break the 8, then it means that we don't want the Fourth Republic. Because anything like Ayawaso West wagon violence, if anything like that surfaces in the 2024 elections, our democracy probably will be gone. Nobody will sit and take that. Let the police do a professional job, let the politicians do professional politics, and let Ghana have a future. That is all I can say.
Mr. Tobu is someone who has been in the service. What was his reaction to the tape when he first heard it? I mean, was it that it could be a possible creation by something else, or he believed that this could be a reality?
He has concerns that this might have been edited, this might have been an artificial intelligence generated sound that we have heard so far. But of course, he gives a lot of credence to the idea that this is something that can possibly happen. But he has concerns. He wants people to tarry slowly. He's asking the IGP to ignore it, but he has concerns that this may have been AI generated. Let's listen to it.
I've listened to the audio, and it is quite strange. No commissioner worth his salt will do this. I'm tempted to believe that it's that application of AI that has generated the voice and have done such a thing. It is dastardly, it is shameful, because if you want to lobby to be appointed of IGP, that is the wrong way, because what you are doing, if it is true, if the president even remove Dr. George Akufu-Dampare and appoint whoever is lobbying so badly for it, we will paint you as an MPP surrogate, and you cannot perform as an IGP. From a professional background, I think that is an AI-generated something just to deceive the public. And the president will not listen to this kind of thing. So let's just throw it to the dustbin. It's not something that we should try to give it so much publicity. No commissioner worth his salt would do that. And even if there is any commissioner who has done this, then that such a person should never even get closer to the office of the IGP.
But if there is any possibility that this may be true, would you want some form of investigation to be commissioned into it to unravel the face behind this audio?
Well, this is a national security matter. If the state thinks that such a thing can affect the security of the state, fine. But for me, if you ask me, I will tell you, let's gloss over it, let it slide, let Dr. George Akufu-Dampare have a freedom to work. And let's assure him that, listen, these things will not break you down. You are doing a good job for this country, and all we have to do is to encourage you to perform. When your time comes and you are gone, they can appoint another IGP. But if this is how we remove IGPs, it means that we don't want our democracy to stay. We will break down the police service and destroy our democracy. That audio that I've listened to, if it is true, it is sad. And I will be wondering where such a commissioner was trained.
Kwegu, we understand the Interior Minister has been reacting to this.
Yes, we caught up with him in Parliament today. His first instinct was to say that the tape must be ignored, but he says that there is no plot, there is no attempt to remove the IGP. He gives him plaudits, says he's doing so well in the office, and that the government or the NPP is not seeking to remove him. Let's listen to
senior police officer and MPP government officials trying to plot anything of the sort?
Well, I serve my president and I'll do what is policy to bring the development of this country. I'm not sure I want to get involved in any investigation of things, except that they relate to crime. Then we'll do that. But I think that so far, I think we are doing well. As far as I'm concerned, what the president of this country made clear, right back to the manifesto of the election before the first time, was that there was a fear syndrome in Ghana, and part of the fear syndrome was that people thought that we had a security system that was not, across board, we favored a particular class of people in office who were too big to be touched, and therefore the tenet of rule of law, that we are equal before the law, was not tenable. And also we had a professionalism at the time that we were not training people adequately, we were not equipping them, and that's what we sought out to deal with. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, we've made a lot of progress along that line. And we've had a police system now that is professional, that will arrest you whether you are MP, whether you are minister. When you commit an offense, you are arrested and you are dealt with. And above all, they will arrest you if you are a policeman or policewoman. They will deal with you. And now, under this dispensation, you realize that we've made the right to demonstrate a real right. Tapes and whatever you have will only be useful if they relate to crime. But otherwise, we don't know. But having made that positive determination that this is criminal or not.
Will you take a closer look?
A closer look at what?
At the tape. and then come to a firm conclusion as to whether there's something to pursue.
Do you have something that you have seen that you want to ask me? Then ask.
No, we've heard. For instance, they talk about attempts to tamper with the outcome of the 2024 elections.
The government is planning because of that. You want to take.
Please. Let me make it absolutely clear that this government is not going to tamper with 2024 election.
So that's Minister of Interior there. We've been joined on this particular conversation by Adib Sani, who is a security analyst. Adib, grateful to you for joining us. What was your first reaction when you heard about this tape? Have you listened to it anyway?
Absolutely. It sounds very convincing. It doesn't sound like AI or deepfake. But that notwithstanding, as a security person who wears a security lens, when I do such analysis, it is imperative that I exercise some level of circumspection, because we now have such advancement in technology. I can record your voice, play it to the machine, and the machine would replicate it and make it sound like you. Even your video, I can, with that Joy News background, a deep fake of you. If you watch it on the face value, there's no way you'll be able to tell it's true or not. And the unfortunate thing, it has created such a convenient avenue for people to easily give excuses. They do it, and immediately it comes out, they say it's fake. And it's so convenient to do so. And I'm also very disappointed by the Minister for the Interior about his position on this issue. You see, there's a popular saying that the little things matter. What you use is a bath without a tap. And we are so accustomed to brushing off issues. What I would have expected, government, and I'm happy your journalists and other journalists kept buttressing and asking the same question. If we were a very serious country, what would have been commissioned is an investigation immediately to ascertain the authenticity. And now we have advanced softwares that you'll be able to tell easily, within minutes, whether what you are listening to is a deep fake or not. Then the necessary investigation would follow. Because we are talking about perceptions here already. Everywhere. There are people talking about it, the bickering. It's not the first time I'm hearing about the intention of some people to get rid of the, IGP. All right? But when issues of this nature mix the rounds, then those who are very neck deep in the politics start having or even harboring such, perceptions about people wanting to rig the process, and the next minute we are matching you boot to boot, and it's a catalyst for disaster. So let us not rubbish this. I think there is the need for an impartial investigation to go into this so we are able to know the truth and to restore some level of confidence amongst the electorate so far as our politics is concerned. Because next year's election, I must say, is going to be dicey.
Okay. In this case, how do we progress from here? We can't just listen and let it go. How do we move on?
An investigation would have to be done. The things I've heard on the tape is dastardly, it is despicable, it is very inconsistent with our democratic values. We have chalked a lot of successes since the inception of the Fourth Republic. In fact, we are one of the few countries that hasn't suffered a civil war before. We don't have any active insurgency in any part of the country. We have never been attacked by terrorists before. We've had the incumbent handing over power to the opposition without asking questions. We need to consolidate that democracy. And one of the ways that can happen is through the building of confidence. Because once people start having these misconceptions and these suspicions, some of them very unfounded, then it becomes, a matter of grave concern, especially for those of us within the security space. So we cannot afford to rubbish this. An investigation has to be carried out. In fact, there are so many softwares you can use to know and even compare voices to be sure that this voice is from that person and it's not a deep fake etc. So we cannot afford to let it slide like other issues, it has happened with other issues. Okay, we need to consolidate the democracy, and one of the ways to achieve that is through accountability.
What sort of impact is this likely to have on the police administration itself? Now, the IGP probably has heard this. He will be looking over his shoulder. So, from how you understand these issues, what's going to happen now? What impact will it have?
Well, I must say, when the IGP was first appointed, I'm one of the persons who spoke highly of the appointment based on his track record, what he has achieved in the past. In fact, when you even go on Wikipedia, and Google the IGP, I'm one of those persons cited. So from day one, I have had, a lot of confidence in him. He has also proven beyond reasonable doubt that he's up to the task. Recently, there was a video of a Fulani girl who was manhandled. She was assaulted. And I spoke about it in the media. He called me. He quickly arranged a meeting between myself and him and the leaders of the Fulani community. So they get to tell their people to exercise restraint and not to take matters into their own hands because of the video. And guess what? We were on phone with the IGP up until midnight just to make sure that those persons were arrested. And by 3 a.m., they were arrested. By 5 a.m., he called me, Adi, we've gotten them. So that should tell you, he goes down to the ground. I even saw Nigerian media talking highly of him. When he met the school kids, he went down, he spoke with them, he led them to school. They were like, in Nigeria, you can't see this. You can't see the IGP out there. So he has proven that he's up to the task. Please, let the man do his work. Okay?
No, so yes, he will be allowed to do his work, but from this tape, possibly, I mean, some peace or unity in the administration will be ruffled. Wouldn't there be anything like that? Wouldn't he now start to be looking over his shoulders to say, who's coming after me?
Well, the IGP Dampare, I know, is very focused. I'm not his spokesperson, but based on my relationship with him, I'm not sure that it's something that is going to make him worried because Ghanaians are the judge. We know what work he's done in the past and what he's capable of doing going into next year's election. The Asin North is a test case. Some of us were worried that there could be violence, but when you look at the security arrangements put in place, I think he did a great job. So I don't think it's going to affect the way he does his job. My only concern is this tape consolidating or reaffirming, so to speak, people's existing belief about some people wanting to rig the process. We've heard it a number of times. I mean, talking about breaking the 8 and how some will do whatever it is to break the 8. We're talking about some in opposition, whatever it will do, they will do for them to come to power, they will also do it and all that. So we are at a crossroad. Okay, so issues like this matter because it resonates with the people. Okay, and once they begin thinking that my opponent is up to something, then they might also take matters into their own hands, and that could be, cataclysmic to our democracy.
Okay. Now, Mukhtar Momuni is also joining us on this. He is someone with expertise in security as well. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us. Now, Adib says that this is a serious matter that must be looked at. I'm sure you have listened to the tape as well. As a person, when you heard what were being said in there, how did it occur to you? How did it come to you as an individual?
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers. Yes, this, was surprising to me, but at the same time, this is not far-fetched. Okay. And in terms of the role of politicians and how they use, police officers or the police administration, especially in incumbent government, to their advantage when it comes to elections. And so for me, it wasn't entirely surprising that kind of conversation could happen. But I was more interested in which voices we were hearing, which voices were we listening to, what level of leadership is that, what kind of, what category, what weight do they have within the party to have these kinds of conversations. And that would lend credence, and that would determine the weight we place on this and in terms of the conversation that we are now having. But it wasn't entirely shocking to me that this kind of conversation could take place and that people could be scheming to use, the police administration to their advantage when it comes to elections.
Okay. I mean, how must this be handled such that it doesn't create problems for the service and for the country's security in general?
I think that we have to take it very seriously in the sense that that can actually undermine, the processes that lead to the general elections because it allows people to begin to view and begin to see the security steps and preparations that are put in place to see whether it is skewed towards a particular political party and to see whether, a particular political party has had influence in the way the processes are done. But at the same time, I would say we should not take this too serious in the sense that the IGP and his administration in the last couple of years have demonstrated that they are ready to do the job and they are ready to remain impartial. They are ready to remain independent. And this is something we have been calling for in the last several decades. We've been calling for a kind of independent police administration that can and should be allowed to do its job, independent of any political influence from, ruling governments or opposition governments. And what we have just witnessed in terms of the audio that we have listened to, we are just talking about, is a further demonstration of the IGP's commitment to be impartial, to do his job, irrespective of which political party is involved. And so for me, I don't think that we should be too worried about, the capacity of the IGP and his team to do an independent job away from the influence of any political party or the administration. We have seen in very recent times the last two by-elections that have been conducted, and I think both political parties, including all other actors, confirmed that this was done in a manner that we have always expected the police, to do when it comes to elections. So we should not be too worried about it, especially what the IGP and his team is capable of doing in the run-up to the election 2024.
But with what you just said, it then comes down to the appointment regime, how we appoint someone to the office of the IGP. Is that not what we should start with if we really want to give that independence to the office?
Well, for several years, we have been worried about the way the IGP or the police administration is constituted in terms of appointment of the IGP and the other commissioners and the entire leadership of the police administration. Because we believe that if we have an independent commission that takes charge of appointing and setting up, the leadership of the institution, we would be able to have an independent team that acts independently, that acts impartially. But at the same time, and that particular analysis leads to what, we variously quote Obama when we talked about, having strong institutions and not strong individuals. But we need to have strong individuals as well to be able to have strong institutions. So here we have an IGP Dampare, who was appointed by the president and who is at the direction and control of the president, technically in many ways. But at the same time, we have seen him act in a very, very determined and impartial and independent manner. And that tells you that irrespective of the appointing regime, we can still have institutions that can act independently if they are not afraid of losing their jobs. And I can tell you, from my interaction with the current IGP, he is somebody who is unafraid of, the administration or any political power in terms of, losing his job for doing the right things. And so I think that we have a good example now to show that we can be independent, we can have independent institutions, irrespective of who appoints the person in that place.
Well, but he is someone who doesn't fear to lose the job. But there will come some people, because in the past we've had discussions about, well, the IGPs are not behaving the way they have to because they fear that they can be fired. And isn't it now time for us to use this as a test case to say, let's take a look at it again, so that probably you won't have another Dampare, But you could have someone who's not like Dampare, but still can do the job without fear or favor because the way he or she is appointed is not left to someone's whims or caprice. There is a laid down procedure. Shouldn't that be the way we have to go?
Okay. So first of all, you need to ask the question: are all public servants and civil servants not to be? I mean, are they not supposed to be like Dampare? Are they not supposed to act in a manner that shows that they are unafraid of losing their job for doing the right thing? We have to come to a point where we have to build that courage to say that people who serve in that capacity, people who serve in government, whether they are appointed by the president or whatever body, they have to be ready to do the right thing and be willing to lose their job if it has to be that. But at the same time, yes, and I agree with you, we should have an independent body in terms of setting up, in terms of ensuring the independence and impartiality of an office like the IGP's office. Yes, we've talked about how do we ensure that the president's role in appointing the IGP, it is only limited to just confirming, approving, after, for example, the IGP is vetted by Parliament and then, get the approval of the president. That way, it does not become the sole authority of the president to appoint an IGP, which is great. But in the meantime, whilst we are aiming at that, we need to encourage public servants to be willing to do the right thing, irrespective of what the cost is in terms of losing their jobs. That way, we will be able to build, the groundswell of, courage and the spirit that we need to build independent institutions.
Adib, let me come to you here. Mustn't we allow, because the police has structures, people move from one rank to the other, mustn't we just allow that to work so that there will be one person or the officers can rise from whatever rank they have till they become IGP and it's automatic? Nobody should come and say, I'm appointing you. But because of your rank, you rise to become the IGP. Shouldn't that be a perfect solution to this?
The president, of course, in consultation with the police council and the council of states, appoints the IGP.
Sure.
And that is done in many democracies across the world, even in the US, for a police chief to be appointed to take charge of the city police. It is usually done by the mayor or the city council. They come together and appoint the police chief. In other countries where democracy is entrenched, it is the executive that appoints, the one, in charge of the police. I think it is largely because of It is because of a lot of factors. This issue has come up before. We've discussed it in the past. The need for some checks to be done. So security services don't have too much power invested in them because it makes you very vulnerable for coups, military takeovers, police takeovers, and the rest. So it is in recognizing that the 1992 Constitution really took that into consideration. So you would have the executive, which are usually civilians, taking charge, appointing the chiefs and keeping them in check and making sure that they don't do things beyond their powers. That is why for a state of emergency to be imposed, it has to go through that process, and it goes through the executive, it comes to parliament, etc. So you don't have the military or the police decided that, hey, we want to restrict the movements of certain persons. But that doesn't stop the IGP or anyone appointed by the president from being fair, impartial, and professional in his approach. For example, when Donald Trump appointed John Bolton as the national security advisor, at the point, they had their differences with respect to the Iranian nuclear deal and, of course, Trump's open door approach to North Korea. And one day, John Bolton approached me and said, okay, Mr. President, you are going this direction. I am going that direction. It's been great working with you. And so I would like to tender in my resignation. That is true principles. That is professionalism. But people see their stomachs first before their principles or the institutions they represent. So that shouldn't prevent the IGP from doing his work.
All right. Now, we going forward, we need to identify the people on the tape, because we've heard Mr. Tobu who says that the police officer who is on the tape doesn't deserve to be close to the position he occupies. How do we identify the persons on the tape so that if any remedial measures could be taken, we take that?
That can only happen through an investigation. I would have expected that by now an investigation should start into it, because the content of the tape is quite disturbing. And it has destabilizing effects. It is incendiary. Hence, the need for us to look at it closely and not take it lightly. And it's only through that investigation we'll be able to tell, like my brother Mutar asked, who are the voices behind the tape? And once we are able to establish that, then we take matters to a different level. Okay. But for anyone to think that, this cannot be done by that person, that cannot be done by this, I think it's wrong, because we are human beings. You never know what anyone is thinking. Sometimes you are living with someone in the same room, you are on the same bed. The person might be an armed robber without you knowing. So for anyone to contend that, oh my God, I know him, he used to be a nice person, he can't be a killer. Meanwhile, in the end, the person ends up being a killer. So let us not be tempted to think that the police, once you are a commissioner, you are perfect. You don't make mistakes, or you never engage in any activity that is inconsistent with the values of the police service.
Interesting here. We have one political person, one police officer on this tape. Investigation can't help us unravel it. But like you said, by now, we should have heard of the institution of a committee to look at it. How long from now should this announcement be done? By who?
I don't think a committee should look at it. Usually they like drinking too much tea and they talk plenty, and in the end, nothing comes out of it. It's just a simple CID investigation.
Okay.
So we get to know who are behind it and whether they matter in the general scheme of things or not, because all of this is also aimed at boosting confidence in the process. And as a foreign policy and security person, I do know the importance of confidence in the electoral system as a prerequisite to make it clean, fair. For example, in 2007 in Kenya, there was an AU document that pointed to certain worrying factors with respect to people not trusting the process, not trusting the Independent National Electoral Commission. Nothing was done about it. In the end, there was chaos. In Ivory Coast, the same can be said. At the point when the Electoral Commissioner, they call them the courts, came out to announce the results, someone took the slip from them and tore it because he didn't trust the process. Okay, so we wouldn't want that to befall us. Perceptions is everything. Okay, we have to get Ghanaians to understand that, hey, nobody's up to anything untoward. Whatever it is, by the end of the day, in 2024, December 7th, whoever would be elected would be a true reflection of who you want to be the president. Okay, the one step towards realizing that is to ensure accountability and not simply brushing off serious matters.
Grateful, but Mukhtar, let me bring you in here. So both of you have said, well, this is not a big issue that we should be worried over. So can we go to sleep, and if nothing happens, we take it as, well, nothing really happened?
Well, we can't at the moment just conclude that nothing will happen and that we should leave it as it is. No, we need to investigate this, and we need to determine the voices that are in it. That will determine the weight we place on this kind of, talk that we are listening to. And that can establish whether we need to do further investigations or take any actions around it in terms of going forward into 2024 elections regarding the police administration. At the moment, like my brother Adib mentioned, confidence is very, very key. If anything that is aimed at, doing something like what we are listening to, can undermine confidence in the processes that lead to the elections. And so we need to establish the veracity of these audios. We need to know who are involved in this. We need to determine the weight, how much do they matter in terms of weight in the party and in government, if at all they are. And that can lead us to what we do next about it. But the important thing is that we need to ensure that the processes involved in terms of the electoral processes, in terms of security, impartial, in a manner that is independent, and ensure that everybody feels confident about the process. And that kind of thing begins now.
Interesting. I've heard a member of parliament describe this as treasonable, and that we need to investigate it to arrive at that conclusion, or to understand what was the way out. If treason is brought in, then it means it's a serious matter. Are you looking forward to seeing the parliament intervene in this?
Well, this is quite far-fetched, but of course, these are politicians, so you heard it from the politician. They know the stakes that are involved here. Elections, there are high stakes involved. It can lead to change of power. The role of the police, they know. If you have ever ruled before, you know the capacity of the police administration, to make a difference in electoral outcomes. And so for any politician or group of people to seek to hatch a plan intended at, changing the leadership of the administration or using the leadership of the police administration to their advantage, their opponents would see this as either directly or indirectly attempt at staging a coup or attempt at subverting the will of the people of Ghana. Because if that happens successfully, it would have amounted to subverting the will of the people of Ghana, in that manner, people can describe it as, potential coup situation. But that is far-fetched. The important thing for us to do is establish the voices that we have listened to, who they are, how much, they matter in the party, and the possibility that they have the capacity to do what they are talking about. And that can determine what we do next going forward regarding it. But the difficulty right now, for the government possibly could be that if they were intending at changing the IGP for any reason, now it becomes very complex and problematic because that would be played into this game. It would create the impression that is intended at, setting up a leadership to, act in a manner that is to the advantage of the ruling government. And so we wait to see what happens, especially in the coming days and weeks, what will come out of this particular tape.
Mukhtar Mumini, grateful to you, as well as Adib Sani. Both of them are security analysts, and grateful that they could join us on this discussion. You're still watching The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. We'll take a quick break. We have more for you here in this edition. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. Now, the Ministry of Education has set up a 7-member committee to investigate and recommend measures regarding the mass failure of teachers that took part in the 2023 Ghana Teacher Licensure examination. It will be recalled that out of the 7,728 candidates who wrote the exams, 6,451 failed, representing 83.5%. But speaking on measures being put in place to curb the situation, the Education Minister, Dr. Yaosey Aduchum, says the committee will, among other things, ensure that preparatory materials are made available to candidates to curb the high failure rate. We'll be going into that, but first, let's take a look at the performance of our teachers and how the performance have been over the years. But even before we bring you that, let's now hear from Dr. Yaosey Aduchum speaking during the inauguration of the committee earlier today.
The committee is looking at the extent to which the Ghana Teacher Licensure exam is aligned with the national teacher standards and other supporting policies or framework, such as the pre-tertiary curriculum. So, and then look at the quality of students being admitted into the teacher education institutions relative to the grade and program of specialization at the senior high schools. Also look at the selection process
So let's share with you the graphical representation of the performance of our teachers in the licensure examination. We told you earlier that over 80% failed in the 2023 one. Those who took the research, out of the numbers that wrote close to 8,000, some 6,000 and over failed. Now, so this is a look at the performance of these teachers during this licensure examination. Now, if you look at it, we have a total of 145,050 since it started in 2018 to 2022. Out of that, we've had those who have passed are 9,589, representing 65.2%. Those who have failed are 50,461, representing 34.84%. So these are the numbers that have failed as well. Now, so let's look at performance since 2022. That last year, we have a total of 8,814 people who sat in 2022. Now, those who sat, so that's for the first part. We had 7,743 writing for the second one in the same year, and for this year, those who were writing in the first one. So the thing is that if you fail, you need to resit again. We had 7,728. Now, out of that, we had 3,624 who passed when they sat for the first time in 2022, representing 41.1%. Those who passed in the second attempt in 2022 were 2,904, representing 37.5%. Those who passed for the first time when they wrote in 2023 were 1,277, and then that represents 16.5%. Now, those who failed, from the 8,814 people who wrote in 2022, we had 5,090 teachers, representing 58.9% failing. Those who wrote in the second time in 2022, out of the 7,743 people who wrote, we had 4,839 failing in that examination. And then those who resat in the first part in 2023, out of the 7,728 people who wrote, we had 6,451, representing 83.5% failing in that regard. So that has been the performance. Let's look at the 2023 performance by mode of training. So how were you trained before you graduated to be a teacher and then before coming in to write the examination? So out of those who passed, we had a number of 353 who had gone through the regular module of being trained, So they went to, if it's the college, we're on campus learning, if it's the university, we're on campus learning. Out of that, we had 1,383 of those who went through the regular module failing. Now, when it comes to distance, so those who are in the home and they go for weekend classes, we had 777 of them passing and had 4,287 of those failing the exams. Those who went through the sandwich module, we had 131 of them passing with 664 of them failing. For online, we had 12 of them passing and 11 of them failing. So that's how the performance had been by mode of training. So regular, distance, sandwich, and online. That has been it. Now, to help us understand the trend and possible solution to this challenge, we have been joined on Zoom by Divine Be, who is Senior Programs Officer, Africa Education Watch. And he is an education specialist and program evaluator with a bachelor's degree in IT education and a master's degree in educational measurement and evaluation. Right person for us to speak to. Grateful to you for joining us here. What do you make of the setting of up of this committee? So the education minister is setting up this committee to look into these failures. What do you make of it?
All right, thank you, and sorry, good afternoon to your viewers. For me, it is a welcome news as it reflects generally the call made by Ghanaians when this issue came up. We know that Council for PTA has also called for setting up a committee to investigate. Teacher unions have also made similar call. CSO, those in the academia, and then also those of you in the media have made the call for an investigation. So for me, I think it is the right step taken by the Ministry of Education to actually investigate, because there are a lot of questions that needs to be answered as far as the potential teachers' failure of the examination is concerned, especially when they are resitting for a number of time, and some of them we understand I've actually sat for it for about 9 times, and I feel I think generally there are a number of questions that need to be answered. For instance, we need to understand the quality of teachers or potential those seeking admission to the colleges. What sort of qualification are they coming with? And then also, how did they pass their examination, given the level of difficulty, the questions we have seen? For me, I think anybody that has passed his college level or the university level examination and has successfully completed college or university should answer those basic literacy and then numeracy questions. But if they are struggling to pass the licensure examination, then we need to understand also how they were able to pass their school level examination. And then also there are theories like probably there's something happening at the end of the NTC when it comes to marking of the scripts. There are theories that probably there may be miskeying such that students that may have be passing are also being failed. So we need to understand the committee also needs to come to a conclusion on the instances of such happening when it comes to marking of the script. And then also we need to come to the point to understand that do we have to allow those visiting to continue writing forever, or we need to consider reintroduction of a capping system so that you write for a particular number of time and then the video opportunity is closed. For me, I think these are some of the questions that we need answers for as far as the committee's work is concerned.
Well, so the committee, I'm sure, has its own strategies or keys, or you say objectives or target. But having looked at how the teachers, how they were trained and how they are failing, I mean, we know the numbers that went through the regular mode and how they were failing, those who went through distance, those who went to sandwich and online. What would be your recommendation to the committee as to how they can get the best out of this particular exercise they are to embark on?
Okay, so I don't know the terms of reference that they are working with, but that's some of the areas that I previously mentioned that they need to look at when it comes to the quality of teachers that those seeking admission into the colleges and universities to become teachers, the quality of entry, and then also we need to look at what the sort of training it is. We also need to pay attention to the sort of or the mode of receiving their training, because if you look at it, the failure rate is so high among those that are doing distance and then also sandwich programs. So I think there has to be a focus on that area, whether we need to do some sort of modification or a reform how we deliver our sandwich and distance programs for persons that want to become teachers. So they need to focus on that. Also, we need to ensure the quality assurance is not compromised as far as the delivery of sandwich and distance programs are concerned. Whereas we will not say all of sandwich and distance program, because if we want to increase gross tertiary enrollment rates, of course, the bricks and mortar classroom will never ensure that we increase the rate. So we need to capitalize on technology to achieve that. So if we are capitalizing on technology to deliver a sandwich and distance program, and that doesn't mean quality needs to be compromised. So they need to also focus that area, ensure that such mode of delivering tuition to potential teachers are also of high quality as far as standard is concerned.
Now, one of the recommendations that we've been told of is that there's going to be capping on the number of times a candidate can rewrite the examinations. What do you make of that?
Right from the onset of this whole debate, that has been the position of us at Africa Education Watch. Look, we cannot continue to allow them to write forever. If you look at how it is done in some other jurisdictions, some states in the US, if you look at their delivery of teacher licensure examination and other professional examinations, and even beyond US, you realize that it is not a forever affair for you to be writing and writing and writing. And then has to be the point that once you've written for this number of times, that opportunity is taken away from you if you haven't passed the examination. So largely, I agree that the committee needs to have that capping done. It's very important because my fear is that, look, if somebody is failing continuously, that person becomes desperate to pass. So the person can employ any foul means to pass the examination. So if you are giving a person the opportunity over and over and over, and the person has employed a foul means to pass the examination, and you send the person to the classroom, we cannot imagine the havoc that person will cause to our people. So we need to come to a point whereby we settle on a capping when it comes to the number of races.
Okay, Mr. Dampare, I'm grateful that you could join us here on the Pulse on the Joy News channel. Moving on to other stories. A flag bearer hopeful of the new Patriotic Party, Dr. Usuefri Yakoto, says Ghana must focus on other tree crops other than cocoa in the drive to develop the country's agricultural sector. He says cocoa earns the country 1.5 billion annually, but other tree crops like rubber can earn Ghana more than that amount. He says we must be deliberate about it, and that's why the Tree Crop Development Authority is an important player in this. According to him, the potential of the Tree Crop Development Authority holds in developing agriculture is one that we cannot gloss over. He says they hold the power to ensure Ghana does not borrow to finance its development again. He has been speaking to the media in the wake of the World Bank's injection of some $200 million into the tree crop diversification project. The International Development Association of the World Bank extended some $200 million financing through modernizing agriculture to accelerate productivity, resilience, and industrialization.
First of all, you all know that the flagship program, Planting for Food and Jobs, was a major intervention by the Akufo-Addo government in transforming the economy of Ghana by promoting productivity in agriculture and specifically targeting farmers. Farmers who are mainly smallholders operating 3, 4 acres, 5 acres of land at any one moment, haven't been given the opportunity to prove themselves until this government came with the Planting for Food and Jobs. Unfortunately, Planting for Food and Jobs has 5 components, what we call modules, but it's only one module which has taken center stage. Of course, I can understand because it's to do with our stomachs. There's a food crop component of Planting for Food and Jobs. There are other components which are equally important to transform agriculture in Ghana. And these include the what we used to call the Planting for Export and Rural Development, which targeted 6 crops for development, the tree crops to the level of cocoa. Cocoa has been the mainstay of this economy for over 130 years now. And in spite of the fact that in 1922, the governor of the Gold Coast, Gordon Gagisbeg, made the observation that the Gold Coast was producing 60% of global output of cocoa, that it was time we turn our attention to other tree crops like rubber and others. Since then, every government which comes to govern has had this lip service of diversification, but it's never happened until the arrival of the Akufo-Addo government. And under this government, we launched the Planting for Food and Jobs, the 5 modules by the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in various parts of this country. The component which I am talking about today is what the Planting for Export and Rural Development, which I piloted through the ministry's own personnel to come up with a document for submission to the Cabinet of the Republic, which was eventually approved and sent on to the Parliament of Ghana, and in September 2019 was approved as an act. The Parliament passed an Act 1010 in 2019 for the the creation of this authority. I want to remind you that since 1947, with the creation of Ghana Cocoa Board, there has not been one single commodity institution created since then. And one will be wondering why, because you have crops with today, the value is much higher than cocoa. And yet we are stuck with cocoa, with the potential of other tree crops. So the idea about the Tree Crop Development Authority is to shepherd these 6 potential crops: cashew, shea, mango, coconut, oil palm, and rubber, to be able, each of them, to develop and earn Ghana as much as cocoa is earning Ghana today. At the moment, Ghana is earning about $1.5 billion from cocoa. These other crops have the potential to earn Ghana even more, $2-3 billion. And we have to go to Cote d'Ivoire to see exactly what I mean by that. So, having created the authority in Parliament, the President of the Republic in August 2020 inaugurated the board and the management of this Tree Crop Development Authority in Kumasi, where it's headquartered. And the feasibility study, which was submitted through Parliament, was that it needed a seed fund of only $50 million for the first 3 years. Just $5 million each year for the first 3 years, and that was it. It will be able to borrow on its own profitability and so on, and would not be part of the budget of the Republic of Ghana. Just like Cocoa Board operations do not come into the budget, they will be able to go to the bank to raise their monies, whether locally or overseas, or a combination of the two. So this authority was created. Now, to get it off the ground for this is the 3rd year of the operation. You ask me how much money has been disbursed to the authority. By now, we should have the government should have disbursed $15 million. But as we speak, it's only $3 million. And means that the vision of contributing to the future of the economy of this country was being held back. So I entered into discussions with Mr. Pierre Laporte, who is the country representative of the World Bank, and submitted the project and all its aspects to that organization. And they saw that there's something to be said, in fact, for supporting the Tree Crop Development Authority. So they took it up, and have gone through the system. Of course, by the time the approval came this month, I had left the organization. But I'm so pleased to see that vision is now very, very feasible, because it has the potential of earning this country anything up to $12 billion after 6-7 years of implementation. And you only have to go across the border to Cote d'Ivoire to see what is happening. The same 5 crops are giving Cote d'Ivoire $7-8 billion every year, whilst the 5 crops, including cocoa in Ghana, is earning less than $2 billion. So the potential is huge for this organization to contribute to financing our development. For the last, since independence, we've been to the IMF 17th time. This is the 17th time that we are just coming out of the negotiations and approval systems. And it's very simple. We've been financing our development through debt, borrowing locally and externally to support our development. And in spite of the fact that we are paying interest and the capital that we borrow, we are not generating enough revenue from these borrowings to be able to service the debt and also pay back the principals. And hence, every 3-4 years, we fall down. We fall down because we go back to the borrowing market, to the debt markets, borrow, Eurobond, bilateral, local, treasury bills, and so on to develop. And no country can develop with that kind of strategy. So if it hasn't been working, financing our development with debt, then we have to look inside to see what resources we can generate. And of course, those resources are just below the soil. That is all we have. We've been mining gold for over 100 years in Obuasi. Ghana is now the biggest, for some years now, the biggest producer of gold in Africa. And yet we are in the clutches of the IMF. President Kufuor's time, we discovered oil, and we thought all our problems would be solved and our financing will come from oil. What do we see? Oil production has actually been dropping in the last few years. So we are not getting much. But then my experience in the 6 years at the ministry shows me that working with Ghanaian farmers, and don't forget, I have been in the international system for 18 years before I came back to Ghana, working with all kinds of government in Asia, South America, in Europe, and so on. I realized that the Ghanaian farmer, with a little push, with little persuasion, can really perform. So we believe that if Ghanaian farmer is given the full support, they can help generate the foreign exchange that we need through this Tree Crop Development Authority, and also through our traditional food crops like maize, rice, and the others. People those who are criticizing planting for food and jobs, oh, we are importing. There's no country in the world who doesn't import. America imports, Russia imports, China imports. But it's the quantities, the proportions that they import that makes the difference. So in actual fact, we've been exporting maize and others and the planting for food and jobs, the food crop component of it. Informally, the informal trade between us and our neighbors, when we did a calculation at the ministry, at the time I was there, amounted to something like $100 million in 2021, to be specific, of informal trade, amount of grains that we take across our borders to our neighbors, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, and others. So there is a huge potential there for us to earn foreign exchange if we are able to increase our productivity of these smallholders and so on. There's this fanciful idea that smallholders cannot deliver. They've delivered a global industry like cocoa for Ghana for 100 years. So why do you think they cannot do the same for the others if we support them? And planting for food and jobs, my lesson from it is that in addition to the tree crop of cocoa, which we are now, hopefully with this new financing, will diversify into other crops so we can earn more foreign exchange. In order that we can use the additional foreign exchange to finance our industrialization, our education, our health, our infrastructure, roads, motorways, farm roads, and all of those things. That we have that potential to be able to do that if we support farmers. So I'm glad to see that even having left office for about 6 months, a lot of these initiatives that I took are coming into fruition. In addition to that, I left in my office the Horticultural Development Authority and then the Poultry Development Authority. These two were in the pipeline, and I am hoping that they will come into, eventually travel through the system to go to Parliament for the creation of these institutions, which will then drive the development of the various subsectors of agriculture to transform this country into a country, a first world country, by generating more than enough foreign exchange and local revenue to fund our development for the future. So that's the vision I have for the nation Ghana, that through this path, through the agricultural path, through the path of farmers of Ghana, this country can be transformed into a land of prosperity for all of us.
You know, when you launched the government launched the one billion one time.
Yes.
Which was to make water available to the farmers, because during the dry season it's difficult.
Yes.
So I was asking that a plan to ensure that we create a system where even in the dry seasons, our farmers can still.
Yes, but you see, it's like buying a VW compared to buying a Mercedes-Benz. Irrigation is like Mercedes. If you get a trotro from Medina to the ministry, it will get you to your office. Somebody will also come from Medina to the office in the ministry in a Mercedes-Benz. It depends upon affordability. You talk about irrigation, it's very expensive. We're talking about billions of dollars equivalent if we really have to. The Pualugu irrigation scheme is $1 billion, so it's not cheap. But what is cheap and can be effective is helping smallholders using the same two rainfall patterns that we've had since time immemorial to improve upon the work that they are doing. That we could afford, at least in the 6 years, we're able to subsidize, and then the application of these things went up substantially. I mean, when we came in 2017, only 2,200 metric tons of improved seed of the 5 ones, maize, cereal, and the others, were applied. By the time I left the ministry last year, it had gone to over nearly 50,000 metric tons of improved seed alone. And each of these, is meant to help the farmer to increase production on their little farms. And we are talking about over 3 million farmers. So if every one of them is to improve even 5%, you can see the aggregate, okay? Instead of saying 1 billion in one location, you have spread it amongst a lot of people and transforming their lives in their villages and so on.
Okay, thank you very much. At this stage,
Now, Dr. Oshefri Akoto, in the video you just watched, revealed that with improved seed varieties, Ghana can make strides with its farming output as against the effort to construct dams. According to him, comparing the expensive nature of constructing dams makes economic sense for a developing country like Ghana to rely on the use of improved seed varieties than to rely on dams. But the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana vehemently disagrees with him. Joining us via Zoom is Dr. Charles Nyaba, who is the executive director of the association. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us. First, your reaction to this assertion by the former minister that, look, instead of worrying about expensive dams, the use of improved varieties can do the magic for us. Hello, Doc. Kindly unmute so we can follow what you're telling us, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we are actually disappointed that this statement is coming from him when he's the very person who is talking about modernization of agriculture. You cannot modernize agriculture without water. And we all know that for the past 1 decade, the raining pattern has changed drastically. So you go to almost all the 16 regions of Ghana, and farmers cannot rely on the rainfall to do meaningful farming, because in terms of volumes, it has reduced drastically. In terms of patterns, it has changed drastically. In terms of length of rainfall, it has changed. So we cannot continue to say that because our forefathers used to rely on rainfall. Israel grew their agriculture sector through development of their irrigation system. They were able to convert even the seawater into agricultural water. You go to Egypt, they use the Nile River to actually develop the agriculture sector. You go to China, you go to every community in China, there is irrigation. You go to India, the same thing.
Libya during the Gaddafi regime was doing the same.
Yes. So even when you go to the desert nations, they are changing the space of agriculture through irrigation. And it was the same concept that the NPP government, when they were coming to power 2016, they sold to us and all bought into it, that they were going to introduce this one village, one dam, which is a fantastic conceptualization that they were introducing. The only problem we have with the one village, one dam has to do with the way it was implemented. It was poorly implemented. There was no proper consultation. They didn't use people with expertise to do the construction. And that led to the failure of one village, one dam. So for the minister to now come and say that and try to make a wrong comparison by using a Mercedes-Benz and Trotro, it doesn't match. If you use that example, it means that irrigation is a luxury because Mercedes-Benz is a luxury car. But irrigation is not luxury because without irrigation you cannot farm. So to me, I think I'm not downplaying the importance of hybrid seeds or improved seeds because we are using it. But I think that you cannot grow your agriculture with hybrid seeds with a proper irrigation system. And irrigation system is what we are pushing for.
Well, but in one breath, if say with irrigation or with the normal rainfall we do have, you are getting 1 or 10 kilos per bag of maize per acre. And with his analogy, he says with improved seeds, you can make, say, 50 bags of 10 kilos per acre. That's an improvement over the previous. And that should be something that is worth investing into, isn't it?
Yeah, so just like I said earlier, I'm not downplaying the importance of using improved seeds. And let's look at over the years, how much has government invested in improved seeds? This year, as we speak, there's no subsidies on improved seeds. And I can tell for a fact that farmers are already using their own money to buy improved seeds without government subsidy. Okay? But irrigation infrastructure is so huge that no farmer will be able to create his own irrigation without government intervention. So if he's even saying that we are accepting the investment on subsidy on improved seeds to support irrigation infrastructure, it's something that we all welcome. If you even speak to seed growers, they will tell you the reason why they are not able to produce proper seeds in Ghana is lack of irrigation facilities. And they are all pushing that if we should adopt improved seed system, then we need to improve on irrigation infrastructure. Most of the improved seeds that we are using, and those seeds are not part of the seeds that government has subsidized. Those seeds that government subsidized are the OPVs and some few hybrid seeds. And those seeds, farmers, the demand for them from farmers is less.
Okay.
Most of the farmers are buying the quality improved seeds that are imported. So if you actually want farmers to adopt improved seeds or want to improve supply of improved seeds in the country, what we need to do is to create enabling infrastructure for seed growers to be able to grow. And irrigation is one of the key infrastructure that we need to be able to produce quality improved seeds. So to me, I don't disagree with him. I don't agree with him, and I don't think there's any farmer who support this analogy that he's making.
With the irrigation systems that we do have in place now, how are their utilization like? Are we putting them to good use, or just like we do? And in the past, we've had irrigation systems that have really gone bad because we didn't manage them well. Currently, with the ones that we have, how are they now?
Yeah, so to buttress my point, if you look at the areas where we have high yields, farmers are recording profitability in their production. The few irrigation facilities that we have, you can talk of the pump irrigation scheme. Go there and see the farmers who are producing rice and other vegetables, both rainy season and dry season. Go to tunnel irrigation areas. That is where we are getting most of our seeds to supply to other farmers who do a lot of rice season there. Go to K2, the irrigation project there, the same thing. So almost all the few irrigation areas that we have in Ghana are where we are getting good yields from. Now, the same government has introduced this economic enclave project. And when you go there, the president just launched that project last month. You go to those areas, they are creating different types of irrigation. They are creating canals and other things to ensure that there's available water for farmers who want to actually go there to expand their production to do. So if the same government is doing this, and then a former minister of agriculture who
Unfortunate situation there. Well, so we're speaking to Dr. Charles Nyaba, who is Executive Director for Peasant Farmers Association. Yeah, Doc, your line is okay now. You're making a point about the former minister who is going contrary to what the government is doing.
Yeah, I said recently, the government is investing hugely on the construction of these economic enclave projects, where they are creating irrigation. They are actually tapping water from the rivers and then creating canals for farmers to be able to produce. So if government is investing like this, and a former immediate past agric minister is now coming to downplay importance of irrigation and comparing that to hybrid seeds, to improve seeds, I'm really surprised. And I don't think his own government is going to be happy with this information that he put out there.
Okay. You mentioned that there's been poor implementation of the one village, one dam policy. What must we do to that policy going forward? We've invested money, we've not really derived the benefit. What should we do as a country?
Yeah, I think we have assessed almost all the dams under the one village, one dam. There are some that can be repaired. We presented a report, a comprehensive report, which contains recommendations that government need to take in going forward. So those that were poorly constructed and then can be repaired, recommended that government pay attention to them and allocate resources to rework on them. There are others that where the dams are even situated, it's not waterway. So when it rains, the dams doesn't get enough water. Those dams, there's nothing we can do about them. We also realized that those contractors that they use for construction of the dam, they didn't have the expertise in dams construction. So we recommended that government re-engage GIDA, Ghana Irrigation Development Authority, who are known to be in charge of all public and private irrigation development in the country. But during the one village, one dam, they were all ignored. So we recommended to government to hand over all the dams to GIDA, who are mandated by law to actually do that, who also have engineers who are capable of doing that, to take over the one village, one dam. And I'm thinking that when we do that and we do proper designs and select those dams that can be repaired, and then we put them together to have some at least reasonable dams within a district, that will help. So I think when we do that, it is a way forward.
Okay. How many dams have been constructed? How many cannot be repaired at all, according to your study?
Yeah, I think I need to make a reference to my study report, but I know the government targeted constructing 516 dams, but to give you the specifics, I didn't know we were going to discuss that, so I have to look in there and be able to give you the specific dams, those that are usable, those that are not usable, and then those that we think that we need to just close them and then make them to get a reasonable dam.
Okay, grateful to you, but sorry for the ambush there. I didn't know I was going to ambush you with this, but I'm grateful for you joining us, Dr. Charles Nyaba. He is Executive Director for the Association of Peasant Farmers. To other stories, an Accra High Court has refused an application for a stay of proceedings filed by lawyers for the Asin North MP, James Jachekwason. The MP's lawyers filed the application for stay of proceedings of the criminal trial pending an appeal at the Court of Appeals. Richard Kwajo Nyako was in court and has filed the following report.
MPs were in court in their number to solidarize with their colleague ahead of the ruling for stay of proceedings filed by lawyers for the Asin North MP, James Jachekwason. The court refused the application for stay of proceedings, indicating that continuing with the trial of Joe Kwason will not amount to an unfair trial. The court took the view that a grant of stay of proceedings is a discretionary power of the court, and the argument put forth by lawyers for the Asin North MP were not listing exceptional circumstances to warrant the grant of the application. Lawyer for Joe Kwason, Chachuchi Kata, pleaded with the court for the adjournment of the case until the appeal is heard, but the court adjourned the case to the 14th of July. Head of legal for the NDC, Abraham Amalba, says even though they are disappointed with the ruling, they will not relent.
The ruling was made today. Today, the judge gave the ruling, but refused our application. The judge said that there was no special circumstances warranting her to stay the proceedings. We are disappointed. we are dissatisfied. We intend to repeat the application at the Court of Appeal, where we expect a favorable result. As a result of that, we ask the court to enable us file the appeal at the Court of Appeal, the stay of proceeding at the Court of Appeal. That was granted, and so we are back to this court on Friday for the continuation. But what is important is that we are repeating the application at the Court of Appeal because we are dissatisfied.
Deputy Attorney General Alfred Chiayabua smiles vindication.
Indicated. This is a court of law. It's not a court of political gimmicks or razzmatazz. It's for us to speak law and talk law in court. We talk law, we spoke law, and we are vindicated. It's going to continue as ordered by the court on Friday. And Friday, our witness will be in court to continue with the cross-examination. It's within their right to do so, but their filing does not automatically stay proceedings of the trial court. If they file, we will respond accordingly. But to us, we are dealing with law, we are not dealing with sentiments, we are not dealing with politics in court. Politics belongs to political platforms, law belongs to the courts, and we are here in court to talk law and not politics.
Some of the minority MPs have been speaking to Joy News.
Terribly disappointed. I mean, I was just telling someone that elsewhere, the charge sheet would have probably read the people versus Jackie Peasant. And the question that would have run through anybody's mind is, where are the people? On whose side are the people? I mean, because this whole prosecution, a criminal case, is to be done in the name and on behalf of the people, especially the people of Asin North. If you are prosecuting a person like Jackie Peasant on the, reasons that you are prosecuting him, it is probably because you think that he has perpetuated something against the people of Asin North. They have spoken. They say that's how they want it. So if you are doing a prosecution in the name of the people, it must be seen, like they say, to actually be in the name of the people. This trial is not in the name of the people.
On Friday, the criminal trial is expected to continue.
From the court complex, my name is Richard Kwejenya for Joy News.
Now, the Ghana Health Service says it is committed to providing sustainable health service and care for people. Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, reviewed that expertise is required to surmount challenges on health promotion. He was speaking at the launch of the National Interagency Coordination Committee for Health Promotion. There is more in this report by Jacqueline Ansoma Yeboah.
To coordinate public education geared towards improving the well-being of the people in the country, the Ghana Health Service has established a National Interagency Coordinating Committee for Health Promotion in Ghana. Explaining why there is a need for such a committee, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaji, said there is a tremendous increase in non-communicable diseases which would necessitate the sharing of knowledge from various stakeholders to deal with the problems.
We are facing a more Herculean task now. The emergence and the rapid increase in non-communicable diseases is a major problem. This requires not just resources but also major behavior change. We know from their diverse background they can help us in navigating all the challenges across so that we can improve the health of this country. We saw how COVID affected every sector of this country, and that's the way we want to ensure that we also tackle it in all society and all groups. And that's why we have this more diverse group helping us to promote health in the country.
He revealed that supervisory assessments will be done to ensure the effectiveness of the committee.
Apart from what they themselves will do, we always have assessment done from DHS, our own annual reports, our own coverages will help us to see whether the change in behavior is taking place, and if so, is it creating an impact.
Chairperson of the Interagency Coordinating Committee for Health Promotion in Ghana, Professor L.C. Ifakofman, says the committee will ensure that health-related issues are duly promoted and coordinated.
We have subcommittees, and then we have all kinds of plans and activities that we'll be drawing up to be able to do that. So you'll see us promoting health. You'll see us trying to get the public sector to be interested in what government is doing. It's a partnership. And so you'll see us trying to encourage people to live a much more healthy life and organizing various groups across the country to do this the same. It's a coordinating committee, so we are coordinating all the efforts. So there's a lot that is already happening, but you'll see that many of the times that you have these promotion programs going on, there is no coordination. Everybody is doing what they like. It's our job really to come up with a strategy to harmonize all of the various activities that are going on so that we can use the synergies to do much, much better than what has been happening. So you'll see the old programs going on, you'll see new programs coming up, and the idea is that all of them should be able to fit into a general strategy that we have for promoting health in the country.
The National Interagency Coordinating Committee for Health Promotion in Ghana is tasked to ensure improved communication, cooperation, and collaboration that will harness and coordinate advisory resources of key stakeholders to improve well-being whilst being advocates for health promotion. For Joy News, Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah.
Let's take you to Kumasi now, where winners of the maiden edition of the Love FM High School debate, T.I. Amas, Kumasi, are closer to annexing their second title after winning their contest against Presec Bompata to qualify for the final stage of the competition. After a masterful performance on the motion, quote, chiefs must be blamed solely for illegal mining in Ghana, unquote. T.I. Amas becomes the first school to qualify to the final contest. The Phobians garnered 254 points as they aimed at ending their trophyless drought in a debate competition after winning their first and last title in 2018. Anabuachi Yadom reports from Kumasi.
So after 5 years of an unsuccessful journey to the finals, T.I. Amadia becomes the first senior high school to qualify to the final stage of the Love FM High School debate after an amazing and a masterful performance today against Presec Bompata. I have the principal speaker, Onassis, here with me, and I'll ask him what we have to expect from them as they proceed to the final stage of the contest. Onassis, congratulations to you once again. You are going to the final stage. How do you feel proceeding to the final stage of the contest?
Oh, I feel very good. In fact, I feel satisfied at this point because it was more or less of sleepless nights, relentless effort. And I would like to thank God Almighty for my win. I'll thank the administration, from my headmaster to the teaching staff. Then my patrons, in fact, I had sleepless nights with these guys. CC, Sir Richie, Alan Eba. In fact, this man literally sponsored us 200 cedis worth of food a day. Dude, it hasn't been easy. So, in fact.
Okay, so going forward to the final stage, what are we to expect from you as the principal speaker and your school in general? Heat! All right, so I have the patron for T.I. Amadia here with me. Sir, the last time I spoke to you, you were so optimistic of victory today against Presec Bompata. Are you sure that as you proceed to the finals, you can clinch the ultimate?
T.I. Amadia Senior High School is a winning school with a winning culture. We are all about winning big competitions and big trophies. So it's natural that we are in the final. Since we are in the final, the only thing that we deserve is to win the trophy and bring it back home. But that's what we are all about. It's about winning trophies. And this year is not going to be any different. It's time we reclaim that trophy, and that is what we are doing this year.
All right, so T.I. Amadia Senior High School, they are aiming the ultimate prize at the final stage of the Love FM High School debate come Friday. Today, they become the first senior high school to proceed to the final stage. T.I. Amadia, after an unsuccessful journey, they are aiming to win the 5th edition of the Love FM High School debate. For Joy News, my name is Anabuachi Yadom.
An exciting final that will promise to be. So if you're in Kumasi, just make your way to the venue and witness how this final will go down. But to wrap it all up, the start of the Fourth Republic brought about a renewed sense of hope and aspiration for Ghanaians in their quest for a rapid socio-economic development and a robust democratic dispensation. Have we achieved these 3 decades down the journey? in a collaborative effort to inspire change, an amalgam of professional associations in Ghana presents a public lecture for a transformative socio-political agenda under the theme, quote, "Has the Fourth Republic of Ghana delivered?" unquote. Speaker is Yao Nsako. Panelists will include Professor Noel Tego Akosia and David Ofosu-Dorte. It is happening at the British Council on 25th July 2023 at 6:30 p.m. It will be live streamed on social media platforms as well. Get ready to be inspired by that particular lecture. Wherever you be, do make your date and make your way to the venue so you can listen to this insightful discussion that will be happening there. And that's how we wrap up the edition of The Pulse here on the Joy News channel. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo. On behalf of the team, thank you for keeping us company. We'll leave you in the hands of the LTS team. Have a great day.